Over the 25 years that Pokémon has existed as a franchise, we've been introduced to dozens of legendary and mythical Pokémon, with more and more being added to the fray almost every year. These Pokémon are always one of the most fascinating aspects of the franchise to me. They are presented as super rare and powerful Pokémon, and they often have large roles in their game's plots. But besides that loose notion of them being rare and powerful, I've noticed that what actually defines a mythical or legendary varies quite a bit. So in this video, I'm going to be making a tier list of sorts, going through each of the 6 types of legendary or mythical Pokémon that I came up with. For each new category, I'll be explaining what Pokémon belong here, and what about that category makes its Pokémon deserving of the lofty description of being legendary, each one being a little bit different. Keep in mind, this is all just speculation based off of in-game information only, with a bit of my own projections and interpretations. Without further ado, let's kick it off with the first class. Now, I'm not here to rank each and every legendary in order according to their power levels. This is not a standard tier list, but I will be introducing these classes I've come up with in order from most essential to least essential in terms of their role in the Pokémon world. So it should go as no surprise that Class A legendaries are the ones that are absolutely fundamental to the Pokémon world. These guys are one of a kind, meaning only one of each exists in the entire universe, and they've all existed since the beginning of time, information that's confirmed in-game. This is also one of the smallest classes of legendary Pokémon, due to their pure power levels that aren't really matched. Of course, Arceus belongs in this class, along with the 3 Pokémon it created, Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, each of which are responsible for the function of a fundamental aspect of the universe, time, space, and antimatter respectively. But along with those obvious picks, I'd like to include 3 other Pokémon in this class, Rayquaza, Groudon, and Kyogre. The reason they belong in the A class, in my opinion, is because while the physical features of the universe they created are smaller in scale than the entirety of time and space, they're pure deities themselves. All 3 are confirmed to be one-of-a-kind, immortal beings that directly created a fundamental and physical aspect of planet Earth at the very beginning, meaning the land, sea, and sky. So these 7 Pokémon are the ones I'd consider to be A class, simply because they serve as the purest gods that we get in the franchise. While other legendaries that I'll mention later seem to represent some kind of physical or cultural characteristic, these 7 are confirmed to be responsible for the creation of the domains they represent. Also in-game, it seems like all of them are seen as gods who are worshipped culturally, while also scientifically recognized to be the origins of many of the universe's essential physical characteristics. So with that obvious distinction at the top of this pyramid out of the way, let's move on to the second class. This category is a bit more difficult to define, as a lot of the origins of Pokémon in this class are less clear, so this is where we get into some speculation. However, I'd define this as the lower pantheon of gods. Just like Class A, these Pokémon are one of a kind. They're seemingly immortal beings that not only represent some kind of value, but they're responsible for a vital function on planet Earth. However, they're left out of Class A because the things that they create are not entirely fundamental, meaning Pokémon like Azelf, Mesprit, and Uxie are responsible for the creation of human emotions, which are definitely godly roles. But human emotions are not tangible physical items the same way the land, sea, and sky might be. Same goes for deities like Xerneas and Yveltal, who are bearers of both life and death. This has an impact on human life, which is a detail of the universe, not a fundamental aspect like time, space, or antimatter. I would also put Regigigas, all the titans it created, and the Univin Forces of Nature trio in this category. They are clearly powerful gods that have shaped the continents, but the fundamental creation of landmasses and weather patterns has already been done. These Class B Pokémon are just filling in the details. It's easy to imagine that these Pokémon were created by Arceus to serve as gods, just like Class A Pokémon, but unlike those 6, these ones were created later than the original 6 and are slightly less powerful. However, they're also recognized universally as all-powerful scientifically and religiously. With that minor distinction out of the way, let's move on to the next class. Class C belongs to godlike Pokémon. These Pokémon are by no means actual gods. They're not essential to the foundation or everyday function of the universe. Instead, I think they're just incredibly rare Pokémon, who have somehow exceeded the biology of average Pokémon and have tapped into the power levels of the upper 2 tiers. Most of the Psychic type legendaries belong here, like Hoopa and Celebi, who have the power to manipulate space and time respectively. Darkrai and Cresselia also belong here, who have the power to manipulate and access the dreams of human beings. Or the Eon duo. They seem powerful and rare enough that they have enough godlike psychic abilities on par with the Lake Trio from Class B. However, all of these things, meaning space, time, dreams, and emotion, would still exist without the existence of these Class C Pokemon. They're simply accessing these high power levels for their own needs or survival. They're not directly responsible for the upkeeping of the fabric of reality. One caveat here is the inclusion of Mew, who is the only one without purely biological origins. Instead, Mew was created directly by Arceus to serve as the common ancestor of all Pokemon. But Mew itself is not a pure god, because Mew has genetics that it can pass on, so by all intents and purposes, it is a Pokemon with normal distribution. It's just a little rarer and a little more powerful. This class is a little hard to define, but I think godlike is the best description for this elite class of rare but still not divine Pokemon. Let's move on to Class D, Alien and Extra-Dimensional. The requirement for inclusion here is easy. Any Pokemon that's confirmed to be from outer space or from another dimension belongs here. There are the obvious ones like the Cosmog line and Necrozma, which come from the same dimension as the Ultra Beasts. That means that these are common Pokemon in their own dimensions that accessed Earth via a wormhole, and are simply extremely powerful relative to Pokemon born on Earth, due to the difference in physics between dimensions. I know Solgaleo and Lunala represent the Sun and Moon, but that's because ancient people of Alola worship them for their appearances upon their arrival on Earth, not because they actually created the Sun and Moon. If they did, they'd belong in Class A or B. In this class, I also included Kyurem, Eternatus, and Deoxys, all of which have unknown origins stemming from meteor impacts. The only real speculation I made here was Jirachi, and Jirachi's power seems to come from shooting stars, so I guess it could have come on the same meteor that brought any of the other three that I just mentioned. So that's Class D of legendaries, ones who might actually be common and of average power level in their home worlds, but on Earth, they're more or less one of a kind, and that leads human society to either worship or fear them for their alien qualities. Class E is another easy one to define. These are Pokemon with no divine or biological origins. Instead, all of these were confirmed to be created in a lab setting, or at least from artificial components. Everyone knows the origin of Mewtwo, a failed clone of Mew, and Genesect, another genetically engineered monster. But there's also Magearna, which was created by scientists hundreds of years ago as the first true artificial Pokemon, and the Silvally line, which was made to hunt the Ultra Beasts. The only iffy inclusion here is Meltan and Melmetal, which have muddier origins, but they seem like they were built as artificial golems for some unknown purpose. And the liquid metal property allows itself to duplicate itself asexually, so it's still very much artificial in nature. So all of these Pokemon are legendary or mythical because of the sheer nature of their power. They were created by human hands and they were made to be strong, so of course they outclass the average Pokemon. And in theory, nothing is stopping more from being created, but I'd say only one or a small number exist of each due to the complications behind the creation process for such powerful creatures. With Class E out of the way, let's keep this going. Class F legendaries are where we leave distinct power levels and turn more into them being legendary by name only. This was a very large category and hard to pin down all the ones that belonged here, because there were quite a few. I'd say that this class is defined by legendaries or mythicals that have rich lore behind them, such as being protectors of the ecosystem in their respective regions, or having a high degree of intelligence and empathy. But their scientific abilities don't support the fact that they're actual gods. Instead, they're simply very rare Pokemon that to ancient civilizations were revered as deities, simply because they're only slightly stronger than the average Pokemon, and rich legends were created to explain why these Pokemon were deserving of respect, due to their minor power increase or intelligence. Pretty much any minor trio or group of legendaries belongs in this class. Ancient residents of Unova may have seen the four swordsmen as protectors of their ecosystems. Ancient residents of Alola assigned an island deity role to each of the four species of the Tapu, and ancient residents of Johto or Galar revered the dogs in their regions for various reasons. I'd even put Lugia, Ho-Oh, and the legendary birds in here, simply because they're not very strong, but they do have strong cultural implications in Johto and Kanto. Also, the fact that regional forms exist of the birds in Galar confirm that Pokemon in this class can reproduce and exist as normal Pokemon. I'd say none of them are really more powerful than the average dragon type. So these Pokemon's legends have been passed down to the modern day, and they're strongly ingrained in the culture of the regions they inhabit, like how Urshifu is an average Pokemon that ancient people worshipped as the representative of martial arts, Meloetta as the representative of music, or Shaman as the representative of spirit of gratitude. Roles were assigned to these Pokemon much like ancient folklore in real life often gives roles to animals to represent something. However, these legends are not meant to be taken literally, the same way Class A and B legendaries are. Instead, Class F legendaries are the subject of folklore, much like real-world Greek, Roman, or Norse mythology. This is the lowest and final tier we'll be discussing today, which pretty much leaves all the Pokemon that we haven't been mentioned before. These Pokemon are the loose ends of the legendary and mythical canon, ones who aren't objectively gods, godlike, or even respected or recognized in the culture and religion of the Pokemon world. Instead, I propose that these remaining legends be labeled cryptids. In real life, cryptozoology is the term for the study of animals that aren't confirmed to exist, and instead blur the line between folklore and actual science. These are things like Bigfoot, Yetis, Krakens, and the Loch Ness Monster. I think that in the Pokemon world, a similar class of Pokemon exists, and that's this one. They're super rare, but they're all capable of biological reproduction. They just have low populations to the point where their existence is largely unconfirmed or even unknown. They also tend to live in harsh environments, so they're not ingrained in civilization in any way. However, they are normal Pokemon who aren't outclassed biologically by the average dragon or fairy type even, or even the starters. Like, I would say that Zarude, who is in this class, has no powers more unique and powerful than Infernape. Same goes for Heatran and Zeraora. They just seem like rare Pokemon in their respective types. Basically, if a Pokemon has no lore or confirmed godlike powers, it belongs here. Additionally, I'd include Pokemon with unique reproduction rates, which confirms that they're not one of a kind and they can't be considered rare gods for that reason. Phione and Manaphy can be bred, belong here, along with Diancie, who's just a mutated version of the common Carbink. Also, Zygarde belongs here for the reason that it can be easily duplicated using its loose cells, so you could have an infinite supply of Zygardes. So that sums up the final class of legendaries. For the average resident of the Pokemon world, these guys might seem rare and powerful, but that's just because science is yet to fully understand them, just like real-world cryptids. I hope I've been able to flesh out the 7 types of legendary tiers that I think all mythical and legendary Pokemon can be classified into. My goal was to have some fun speculating and give you a glimpse into why I don't think all legendaries can be considered legendary for the same reason. Instead, these distinct types should flesh out the Pokemon world a bit more than it already is. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for more content.